On the day of her overseas entrance exam, Sophia missed a distress call from her first love, Lucas. Lucas unexpectedly died the same day. She hated me for stopping that call and tormented me for the rest of my life because of it. She despised me, yet used the power of the Taylor family to force a marriage with me, all to take revenge. She said people like me are destined to live a life of suffering. In another life, I watched with my own eyes as, after she answered that phone call, her leg was broken, her face ruined, and her future destroyed. But she regretted it. I was reborn on the day Sophia sat for the entrance exam for the art program. I scanned the surroundings. The contestants were all making their final preparations before going on stage. Margaret was straightening Sophia's dress, handling it gently, as if it were a treasured object. And I stood to the side like an outsider, holding her dance shoes in my hand, silent. On stage, Sophia was performing the dance portion of her art major entrance exam. "Mom, don't be nervous. All you need to do is cheer for me from the audience." Sophia smiled, but there was a trace of anxiety in her eyes. "Sophia, this is the Royal Academy of Dance you've dreamed of. You must do your best. If you don't get in, your father will surely say you're not serious about your career again," Margaret said worriedly. "Don't worry. I prepared for so long. There won't be a problem. I will definitely pass this exam." Sophia murmured comfortingly. It wasn't until the staff urged the contestants to get ready to go on stage that I suddenly woke up. It turned out I had returned to the day Sophia was taking the dance portion of the art major entrance exam. It was also her white moonlight. The day Lucas died, my heart raced as if it would burst out of my chest. In the previous life, when Lucas's distress call came, Sophia was just about to go on stage to perform. This was the decisive moment that would determine whether she could enter the prestigious Royal Academy of Dance of her dreams. The Taylor family and mine are old friends. We grew up together. I know Sophia all too well and understand what this exam means to her. I was afraid she would miss the match and ruin her dream if she took the call. So when Lucas called, I quietly put her phone on silent. Later, Sophia passed the exam successfully, but she broke down when she saw Lucas's missed call. When she tried calling back, the number was already unreachable. The next day, the terrible news arrived. Sophia lost control and rushed up to me, gripping my clothes tightly. Her eyes were bloodshot as she demanded to know why I had put her phone on silent, accusing me of indirectly causing Lucas's death. If I hadn't touched her phone, she could have reached Lucas in time. The weight of this guilt kept me awake at night. I had never faced consequences so severe. The loss of a life filled me with panic day and night. I was crushed by her accusations, truly believing it was all my fault, letting her vent her anger at will. From then on, I became the target of bullying by my high school classmates. Everyone looked at me as if I were a murderer. I drifted through my days and a days, my grades plummeting. During this time, Sophia used her connections to make me miss the overseas entrance exams. Later, she used the influence of the Taylor family to force me to marry her, then found various ways to torment me. She said, "Ethan, people like you are destined to suffer alone. This lifetime, you should be racked by pain. Always remember the mistakes you've made. Live forever in guilt." And so I spent the rest of my life in endless self-reproach. She locked me on the most remote rooftop of the Taylor estate, making me live a life more miserable than a stray dog. In the end, on a rainy day, I chose to jump to my death. And Lucas, he also died unexpectedly on a rainy day. A ringtone interrupted my memories. The backstage lights were dim. I stood dazed in the wings, staring at the phone screen that kept vibrating. It's Lucas calling. In a noisy background, the ringtone was especially jarring. I stared at the screen, cold sweat seeping from my palm. In the last life, this call marked the start of my impulsive decisions and ultimately ruined everyone. This time, I will never make the same mistake. Sophia was getting ready with her mother for the match and seemed not to notice the phone ringing. Backstage was a clamor, practice sounds, and staff instructions interweaving. To distinguish the ringtone, one really had to pay special attention. Tears unconsciously blur my vision. It turns out that even if I hadn't deliberately turned the volume down, Sophia wouldn't necessarily have heard Lucas's call. None of this should ever have been my responsibility. I turned the phone volume up to the maximum, and at last the ringtone reached Sophia's ears. She frowned and glanced at me. "Whose call is that?" "Don't bother." She knew clearly, with the match imminent, any disturbance should be avoided. I snorted coldly and shoved the phone in front of her. This time no one stopped me. I wanted to see how she would choose. Seeing the caller ID read Lucas, Sophia visibly froze. She bit her lip and hesitated for a long time, until the ringtone stopped on its own. "Who was calling you?" Margaret asked casually. Sophia only said it wasn't anyone, and the phone rang again. At that moment, Margaret also glanced at the screen, and her expression darkened instantly. "You still dare to associate with that brat? Are you deliberately trying to make me furious?" Margaret stamped her foot in anger. "Mom, Lucas must have run into some emergency." Saying that, Sophia turned to me. I noticed she still showed no intention of answering. She looked at me with pleading eyes, as if waiting for me to find an excuse for her. The scene struck me as ironic. She dared not defy her parents' wishes, but if I stepped in to stop it, she could absolve herself of her own cowardice. "Ethan, do something about her. This child is a disgrace." Margaret shot me a reproachful look. A cold smile curled at the corner of my mouth. They're all waiting for me to be the scapegoat so they can vent their anger with a clear conscience. How was I ever so foolish in my previous life? I remember when Sophia wreaked all sorts of revenge on me in my past life. Margaret only said, "Ethan, bear with it a little longer. Wait until Sophia calms down." Sophia looked at me with longing in her eyes, clearly hoping I could give her an excuse to decline. I, however, said, "Ms. Margaret, Lucas has been calling repeatedly. Perhaps he's really in some kind of trouble. It's 10 minutes until the match starts, and everyone is waiting here." I didn't offer any concrete advice, leaving the decision to her. Sophia's eyes flickered at his words. Then she stepped aside and answered the phone. Not long after, she hurried back, her face ashen. "Mom, something urgent came up. I have to leave immediately. You're about to go on stage, and you would abandon the competition for that thankless man?" Sophia glanced at me. "Ethan is with you." After saying that, she rushed out of the backstage. "Yeah, I'm just her tool for cleaning up the mess." Margaret stamped her foot in anger with nowhere to vent, so she had to turn her fury on me. "Why didn't you stop them? Just stood there watching her fool around with that thug." Margaret glared at me as if I were hopeless. I just felt nauseous. She can't even control her own daughter, yet has the nerve to blame me. Why should I be the one to discipline her? Just because we're family friends? Just because I once showed an interest in Sophia? At that moment, my phone rang. I frowned, putting on an anxious look. "Dad, what happened?" "I'm coming right now." After hanging up, I told Margaret urgently, "Ms. Margaret, my dad was just in a car accident and taken to the hospital. I have to go see him immediately." Although Margaret wanted me to stay, she couldn't find a suitable reason to keep me. While she was still stunned, I quickly left the scene. In fact, I had messaged my dad Daniel in advance to get him to go along with my little act. I never want anything to do with these hypocrites again. To maintain the business relationship between the two families, my dad still cooperated and came up with an excuse to go to the hospital. I stifled the excitement in my heart. Next, Sophia would be involved in a car accident on her way to see Lucas, and one of her legs would be left permanently disabled. In my previous life, I avoided a worse outcome because I called an ambulance in time. But this time, the situation would be completely different. Sophia and I grew up together. Our parents arranged our engagement when we were very young. Sophia grew up to be exactly what Margaret expected. Graceful and poised, excellent in her studies, consistently at the top of her class, hailed as the icy beauty of the campus. But more than a decade of living by the rules left Sophia feeling suffocated. In her final year of high school, she began to rebel against everything. Lucas was the new transfer student in his final year of high school. He had wild blonde hair and a faint scar at the corner of his eye, giving him an overall dangerous aura. He never bothered to wear the uniform properly. His shirt was always unbuttoned at the top, revealing the undershirt beneath. The tattoo on his wrist faded in and out of view, drawing classmates' terrified or curious glances every time he moved his arm. His arrival shook the whole class, and even Sophia couldn't remain unaffected. All her life, she had followed her teacher's arrangements like a marionette, never once objecting. It wasn't until Lucas arrived that the dullness in her eyes was rekindled. That radiant, elated look was something I had never seen before. Seeing that scene, my heart twisted into a knot. I had a premonition that something was about to change. Lucas was like a bolt of lightning, cleaving through Sophia's calm life and stirring her long-dormant heart into unrest. She tasted the feeling of being unrestrained for the first time. She began skipping classes to date, letting herself go and doing things she never even dared imagine before. I urged her more than once to focus on her studies and plan for the future. She mocked, "Ethan, you're jealous, aren't you?" She leaned against the rooftop railing, casually toying with her lipstick and glancing down at the building below from time to time. Downstairs, Lucas was arm in arm with a few thugs, their boisterous laughter and coarse language drifting up from time to time. "Sophia, Lucas is no good at all. You'd better stay away from him." Sophia tossed her lipstick in her bag and sneered. "Talking behind someone's back makes you noble?" I was about to continue persuading her when I saw Sophia suddenly turn cold. "Who do you think you are? What gives you the right to boss my life around?" She walked up to me in heels, her eyes sharp. "I'm warning you. Don't say another bad word about Lucas, or don't blame me for not remembering old times." Thinking back on those past events, I regret it deeply. I shouldn't have meddled in the first place. Fortunately, heaven has given me a chance to start over. When I arrived at the hospital, I saw my father Daniel sitting in a chair receiving an 4, and my mother Emily lying in the hospital bed scrolling through social media. Seeing them safe and sound, I held back my tears. After I parted ways with Sophia in my last life, I never saw my parents again. Later, the Johnson family business went bankrupt, and I wanted to visit my parents. But Sophia meddled, using every means to prevent me from seeing my family. I held back my inner excitement. Only then did I notice a needle inserted in my father's arm. "Dad, what's going on? Wasn't I supposed to go along with the act? Why did they actually give him an injection?" I asked anxiously. In my previous life, Sophia said my father died of stomach cancer. The news stunned me. "It's nothing serious." Father soothed me gently. "He's just been feeling unwell these past few days and came by for a checkup." "No, he must have a full examination. I can't hear anything right now." In my past life, shortly after my father died, my mother passed away as well. In this life, I will make sure my parents live long and healthy lives. Why don't you tell me what's going on with you? Weren't you always inseparable from that Taylor family's girl? Today something this big happened at her home, and you left instead. My father's words were laced with jealousy. I scoffed disdainfully. Sophia doesn't even care whether her father lives or dies. So why should I stay there? Don't talk about her. Get your checkup done now. I didn't want to talk about Sophia anymore, and immediately took my parents to get checked. The Johnson family wasn't short of money, so the hospital arranged a series of non-fasting tests for my father that same night. When the results of the gastroscopy came back, I finally breathed a sigh of relief. There was a small tumor in my father's stomach, but it was discovered early. As long as surgery is performed in time, the prognosis is very good. Dr. David Harris read the test results and kept praising. "Your son is truly a lucky star," the doctor exclaimed. "If stomach problems are discovered late, they can be troublesome. Fortunately, it was found in time and is still in the early stage." My father also thought I was his lucky star, proudly praising me to the doctor. I stood to the side, listening to these compliments and feeling only guilt. What kind of lucky star am I? In my last life, I was the one who killed them. The next day, I took leave from school and came early to accompany my father for his surgery. Just after my father's operation, an injured person was brought into the emergency room. When I looked, it was Sophia. She was covered in blood, and the wound on her right leg was horrifying to see. A police officer, Marcus Carter, followed closely behind. I hurriedly stopped him. "Officer, what's going on?" The officer frowned and glanced at me. "Mind your own business." "Officer, I know her. She's my neighbor." I know the police wouldn't casually reveal details of the case, but after hearing me say that, he pulled me aside and started taking a statement. It turned out they'd received a public report this morning, and that's when they discovered the injured Sophia. "Could you please contact the family? In situations like this, a guardian needs to be present." I heard that and my heart sank. So, this life Lucas didn't die. Sophia saved him. Then after Sophia saved him, why didn't Lucas call the police immediately? Where's Lucas now? Things turned out to be far more complicated than they appeared on the surface. But looking at Sophia's current miserable state, I couldn't help feeling a hint of satisfaction. Pursuing Lucas, craving freedom. Do you think the price is worth it now? Sophia? "Officer, Sophia has to take her art entrance exam today. If her mother finds out about this, she'll probably faint on the spot." I pretended to be concerned for her. The police sighed, but insisted. In this situation, a guardian must be present. I simply handed my contact information to the officers to spare them further investigation. The police quickly reached Margaret, and she hurried to the hospital in a panic. At that moment, the doctor came out and asked us to sign the surgical consent form. Her left leg is too badly damaged. Amputation is necessary. This news nearly made Margaret collapse to the floor. She turned to look at me and immediately screamed hysterically. "Ethan, you heartless man. Why didn't you look after her properly? Haven't you always been by her side? Please watch your words. Why should my son have to look after members of your family?" My mother appeared in the doorway at some point, her tone icy. Margaret clearly hadn't expected my mother to be there and immediately lost her momentum. He stammered, "That's not what I meant. It's just that he always sticks to Sophia like glue. If he had persuaded her a bit, this wouldn't have happened. Enough. My son's surname is Johnson, not Taylor. He's under no obligation to look after your family. His father just had surgery and is lying in the ward. Do you expect him to ignore his own father and run after your girl? Are all of you from the Taylor family this unreasonable?" Sophia's mother was left speechless by the retort and could only slink away to discuss the surgery with the doctor. The outcome of the operation was without suspense. Northern winter can be deadly. Sophia had lain outside wounded for so long. It was already a miracle she survived. My mother dragged me back to my father's hospital room, complaining the whole way. The Taylors are really unreasonable people. They try to shove everything onto you. You still said you wanted to marry into their family? A family like that is already bullying you before you've even joined them. If you actually married in, what would happen? She poked my forehead and kept scolding. "You too. How could you fall for that girl, Sophia? That child is too wild. If she marries and she'll give you a hard time. You've always bent over backward for her since she was little." "Mom, I understand. I don't like her anymore," I said calmly. My mother's words stopped abruptly. She stared at me in disbelief. "Ethan, have you really come to your senses? You don't love her anymore?" I nodded solemnly. A girl who would throw away her life for a man. Someone like that. I gave a disgusted look. My parents were astonished when I finished explaining the whole story. I thought that girl Sophia was just arrogant, but it turns out she simply didn't regard our son at all. Mother has always disapproved of how I was perfectly obedient to Sophia. Now that I hear she nearly lost her life for another man, there isn't even a trace of pity. A few hours later, Sophia's Aunt Claire came to knock on the door. At the time, we were in the ward with Father, feeding him porridge and complaining that he was usually too busy with work to spend time with us. Father pretended to be angry, but indulgently coddled our mischief. Sophia's aunt pushed the door open. Her expression instantly darkened, but she still forced a smile. "Mr. Daniel, how is your recovery going?" Father nodded slightly and asked directly. "I heard Sophia had an accident too. How is Sophia doing now?" "Sophia, she..." As she spoke, Sophia's aunt began to cry. "Ethan, Sophia is awake. Can you go check on her?" I continued leisurely eating the Western meal in my hands and said nonchalantly, "Wait until she's feeling better." Ethan, with Sophia like this, you're still here laughing and eating. Aunt Sophia scolded me as if I were a future son-in-law. It's my freedom to choose what I want to eat. It wasn't me who hurt Sophia. My dad doesn't care about me. And yet here you are lecturing me. Besides, doesn't Sophia have a boyfriend? Don't always drag us into it in the future. I wiped my mouth and walked out carrying the trash bag. Actually, I didn't need her to tell me. I was already planning to go see Sophia. After all, no one wants more than I do to see what she looks like now with my own eyes. I wasn't just going to go. I was going to hurt her deeply. After taking out the trash, I went straight to Sophia's hospital room. She only gave me a faint glance. "Pour-moi un glace of water," Sophia said. I stood rooted to the spot, my gaze roaming over her back and forth. "After Mom leaves, have Lucas come see me," Sophia said to herself. I couldn't help but laugh mockingly. Do you know where Lucas is? It seems Sophia still doesn't know she was dumped by Lucas yesterday. Looking at her proud demeanor now, she probably doesn't even realize she's already lost a leg. Sophia looked at me impatiently, reached out her slender hand, and said, "Give me the phone." I handed her the phone and watched her dial Lucas's number. A mechanical voice came from the other end, indicating the phone was turned off. She called several more times in succession, but no one answered. Lucas must be in trouble. Call the police. Sophia's face showed anxiety. I looked at her coldly. Ridiculous. She's like this and still worrying about that man. Lucas is fine. He flew abroad this morning. Impossible. Sophia bit her lip. A flicker of panic crossed her eyes, but she quickly returned to defiance. He must be worried my parents will blame him. That fool. I'd even give up my art school entrance exams for him. Why is he so cowardly? I really couldn't listen to her self-deception any longer, so I spoke up. You were found by the cleaner. The doctor said if it had been any later, you would have died. Sophia's expression began to waver, but she still stubbornly refused to believe it. Your mother is now confined to bed because she's worried you'll suffer a sudden stroke. I kept stating the brutal facts. Watching her face grow paler and paler, I knew the moment for the final blow had come. Because she wasn't taken to the hospital in time. Your left leg has been amputated. Sophia froze. She tremblingly threw back the blanket. Seeing the empty space where her left leg should be, she let out a piercing, mournful scream. This can't be. This isn't real. She tore at the sheets wildly, clawing at her own face, completely falling apart. The comminuted fracture in her right leg left her unable to stand, forcing her to writhe in pain on the hospital bed. The girl who had studied dance since elementary school had forever lost her stage. The freedom she cherished most, and those graceful dancer's legs, were gone from her forever. I quietly left the hospital room and gently closed the door. The police ultimately found nothing because there were too many blind spots in the old district surveillance. Only by finding Lucas will the truth come to light. In my past life, Sophia always blamed me for not letting her answer that call, which led to Lucas's death. At the time, I was still a foolish child. I kept thinking I had indirectly caused someone's death and felt deeply guilty. Later, I figured it out. If Lucas were really in danger, he could simply call the police for help. Why must Sophia go rescue him? This was clearly a carefully crafted trap. As for the mastermind behind it, they would soon be exposed. Sophia's life plummeted after the injury, while I, thanks to excellent grades, was successfully admitted to a top private university in the country. I applied for a management major because I wanted Sophia to taste even more hardship. On the day of the banquet, the mystery was revealed. It turned out Richard had a daughter who had been missing for many years and had only just been found. The Taylor family didn't need a crippled heiress, and Margaret tacitly agreed. The moment Olivia appeared, I saw the ambition in her eyes at a glance. She was anything but gentle as her name suggested. This illegitimate daughter, who had drifted around for years, left school before finishing high school and went out into the world. And now, Richard was going to have her take over the company directly. Richard had always believed that degrees were useless and practice was king. When there had been the perfect Miss Sophia, he wasn't in a hurry. Now that this daughter lacked ability, he could only hurry to cultivate her. I stepped forward to greet Olivia, and she instantly blushed. "Hello, Olivia. I'm Ethan Johnson. It's a pleasure to meet you today." Olivia has been receiving cold looks lately. I was the first to take the initiative to show goodwill, which left her overwhelmed with flattery. "Ethan, don't associate with that kind of person. A rude country girl. The Taylor family isn't what it used to be. My parents have always urged me to stay away from the Taylor family, thinking it's too complicated. Don't worry, I know my limits." On the day of university registration, Sophia unusually came out to see me off. "Ethan, why are you going to such a faraway school?" A rare pleading look appeared in her eyes. "Wait for me one more year, okay? Let's apply to the local university together." I only smiled. I was too lazy to rebut such shameless words. After all, there were more things coming up to rile her. I chose a sunny South Bay city. The northern cold made me recall those unbearable memories. Whenever I think of the feeling of jumping from the top floor in the downpour in my past life, I long to bathe in warm sunshine. I plan to take my parents to settle in a warm city once this is over. After entering university, I devoted all my energy to studying and also took part in various club activities. I wore a crisp suit to debate competitions, spent weekends drinking and chatting with classmates at bars, and traveled around. I actively share my life on an overseas social app, captioning it, "College really is the most wonderful time of life. You can freely manage your time, pursue your dreams to the fullest, and make friends from all over." I know Sophia will definitely see these posts. These words are sharp enough to sting her heart. I want her to understand. Those freedoms she craved in elite high school are utterly meaningless. The Lucas she worships isn't special at all. In university, anyone can shine as brightly as Lucas. I will make her see clearly that if she had held on for just 6 more months, she could have gained true freedom. Those actions she imagined were rebellious. Giving up everything for love were simply a farce. Our parents may have been a bit strict with us, but Richard and Margaret were actually very lenient with her. She had her own dance studio where she could practice freely. She also had plenty of pocket money to spend. Richard and Margaret's only request of her was that she inherit the Taylor family. Other than that, they never interfered in her life. She was pampered from childhood, yet she mistook care for a shackle. Sure enough, after Sophia saw my post, she immediately called me. At that moment, I was at a bar playing Texas Hold'em with friends, and the atmosphere was lively. "Ethan, is college life really this exciting?" "It's even more exciting than you imagine," I answered nonchalantly. At the same time, I was discussing the hands with my classmates. "Sorry, I have something else to do here. Gotta hang up." After saying that, I immediately cut off Sophia's call. She once thought that being in a relationship with Lucas was something extraordinary. She felt braver than anyone else and believed that defying her parents was the greatest freedom. And now, I heard that later Sophia fell into a long depression again. Olivia was the one who told me all of this. Ever since I became friends with Olivia, we've kept in touch. Olivia wasn't good at studying. When she couldn't understand company documents, she would come to me for help. I've explained them to her many times. As a top student in management, I often became her lifesaver. The project Richard entrusted Olivia to practice on also became an opportunity for me to gain experience. Under Richard's guidance and mentorship, my university life yielded excellent grades and a wealth of hands-on experience. I became thoroughly familiar with the internal operations of the Taylor Group. After finishing my studies and returning home, Richard suggested that Olivia and I get engaged. My parents were strongly opposed, but I gladly accepted. This is a good proposal. Olivia and I have always been in sync, and a union between the two families would also benefit the company's development. At the gatherings of both families, I readily agreed to the marriage. Joy spread across Olivia's face, but a flicker of unease passed through the depths of her eyes. Of course, she should panic, because I do have quite a few ambiguous relationships out there. But that played right into my hands. Sophia suddenly stood up from her seat to show her opposition. She had fitted a prosthetic, but in the end she was no longer the nimble, graceful dancer she once was. No, Ethan, how can you be engaged to her? We're the perfect match. She looked at me with pitiable eyes, as if I had betrayed her. Sophia, childhood feelings faded with the wind long ago. Besides, weren't you the one who was head over heels for Lucas back then? I mercilessly tore open her wound. The name Lucas had become a forbidden zone in her heart. He had been out of contact for so long. He must feel guilty. No matter how Sophia tried to console herself, this was an unchangeable fact. You sacrificed a leg for Lucas. When Ethan sees your disability later, won't he be reminded of the price you paid for someone else? How can this marriage be maintained? Margaret said bluntly. Sophia was already disabled, and her parents favored her younger sister. Now she was a stranger to the Taylor family, barely getting by on the money Olivia gave her. But my goal is to make the entire Taylor family taste the bitter fruit. The wedding took place soon. After the wedding, I joined Taylor Group, and Olivia gradually took over the reins of the company. On the surface, Olivia was the helmsman of Taylor Group, but in truth, I was the decision-maker behind the scenes. As we lived together after the marriage, the truth from back then gradually came to light. One night, Olivia drunkenly called her circle of shady friends. "Boss, that bastard Lucas actually ran away. What do we do now? Don't let him have a chance to return to the country. The guy's lucky. Even after being sold abroad, he still managed to escape. But don't worry, we have leverage on him. He won't dare act rashly." I lay in bed and, hearing the door open, immediately pretended to be asleep. Everything confirmed my suspicions. Olivia was the mastermind behind this conspiracy. As for why I didn't encounter Olivia in my previous life, the answer became clear. They accidentally killed Lucas, and Olivia promptly fled the scene. In her past life, Sophia had everything go smoothly, and Richard naturally wouldn't offend such an outstanding daughter because of a disreputable Olivia. In this life, Sophia lost her halo, even bidding farewell to the stage forever. Richard, therefore, no longer abandoned Olivia as his daughter. I quickly arranged for people to search the border for Lucas's whereabouts, while also planting informants throughout his city. Lucas was in desperate straits, alone, with no one to turn to except Olivia. As expected, his men soon sent recent photos of Lucas. He looked haggard, his body covered in wounds. Only that face still showed traces of his former charm. It merely appeared much more weathered than others his age. Lucas then found Olivia, demanded a large sum of money, and was asked to leave Hessidy. But he refused to go quietly, secretly staying in Hessidy and continually probing for news of Sophia. I instructed my men to leak information to Lucas. We said that Sophia had never stopped thinking about him all these years. He was indeed moved. I was secretly pleased. When he reunited with Sophia, my plan would unfold. Taylor Group was immediately investigated due to management issues. Someone reported Olivia for suspected illegal activity, and she was taken by the police for questioning. Everything had been within my design. That night, after Lucas contacted Sophia, he was also arrested and brought in. Sophia, eyes brimming with tears, accused Lucas in grief and anger. "Why did you abandon me?" I couldn't help but feel the irony. If Lucas hadn't left, Sophia could have found a respectable reason to give up her dance career, saying it was to pursue true love and freedom. It was his departure that made her a laughingstock. Sophia had been investigating the person responsible for destroying her dreams. Because the emotional wound was so deep, finding the culprit became her only hope for recovery. To avoid being implicated, Lucas laid out Olivia and the others' crimes in full. While Olivia was still in detention, her malicious deeds had already been exposed. The Taylor family plunged into chaos. The truth was that Lucas was a pawn Olivia had carefully placed by Sophia's side. Since childhood, Sophia excelled in her studies and was showered with her parents' affection. Yet she and her mother depended on each other, struggling even to pay tuition. Her mind had been twisted for a long time. For middle school, she ran with delinquent boys and secretly watched Sophia. Watching Sophia being chauffeured every day becoming the favored daughter in everyone's eyes. She burned with jealousy, determined to ruin this person. Once the thought took root, it grew like wild grass. She first planned to destroy Sophia's dance career, so she schemed to get her involved in an early romance. She watched secretly for a long time. She found that Sophia wasn't interested in honor students, unmoved by sunny boys. She was not smitten by cheerful youths either. Mature, steady heartthrobs couldn't win her over either. In the end, she realized that no rebellious teenager had ever confessed to her. This discovery gave her hope. She had been drifting in society for a long time and knew all kinds of people. Lucas was the most vain, the most theatrical, and the most handsome one she knew. She only spent $500 to have him get close to Sophia, and she didn't expect him to succeed so easily. Things progressed far beyond expectations. Later, Lucas was tempted by Sophia's offer and wanted to pull out. How could Olivia allow that? They were, after all, desperate fugitives. She had people humiliate Lucas and even recorded a video, threatening him to keep seducing Sophia. At that time, Olivia was furious. She never expected even someone like Lucas to betray her. When I revealed this to Sophia, her eyes were bloodshot as she gripped her disabled legs tightly. I see now, I truly regret it, Sophia said through tears as she looked at me. Ethan, that day in the study room, I should have turned my phone off. You could have stopped that call for me. If you cared so much about me, why didn't you stop him from contacting me? If you had stepped in, none of this would have happened, and I wouldn't have said goodbye to the stage. Facing her moral blackmail, I retorted with a cold laugh. Sophia, back then you threw your father aside for the sake of that so-called true love. Wasn't Lucas the one you loved most? Didn't you bring all this on yourself? Why regret it now? I didn't argue with her further and went straight to the detention center. Olivia looked haggard, seeming to feel guilty toward me. I didn't blame her. I simply set down two documents. One was the Taylor Group share transfer agreement, the other a surrogacy contract. Olivia was overcome with surprise and joy. You're willing to let us have our own child? She couldn't believe I would agree to surrogacy. Because she had multiple abortions in her early years, she was no longer able to bear children. After marriage, despite taking countless medicines over these 3 years, she still couldn't get pregnant. Yes, I agreed. However, the company is in deep trouble right now. The new project has gone awry, it's heavily in debt, and on the verge of collapse. I can no longer keep it afloat. I plan to sell my shares to pay the debts. After you get out, you can work on my family's company. Just let me resign from the board. You sell your shares and start over. When I get out of prison, we'll live well as a family. We'll get a temporary divorce first. Olivia was unwilling to accept the Taylor family's bankruptcy. Over the years, she had long developed an arrogant temperament, firmly believing her judgment was always right. Don't worry. When the day comes that you regain your freedom, our whole family will be at the gate to welcome you. I forced down my disgust and put on the act of a loving couple. After leaving the detention center, I immediately contacted a lawyer to handle the divorce and the transfer of shares. Sophia was firmly against my selling the shares. Ethan, don't sell. Trust me. We can definitely get Taylor Group through this. I found a surrogate mother, Sophia Martinez, and now I just want to focus on preparing for having a child. I can't accept your proposal. I only want the money. I stroked the documents and gave Sophia a meaningful smile. You aren't short of money at all. You still have the Johnson family. Why are you in such a hurry? If you want to keep the Taylor Group, raise the money yourself and buy the shares back. After that, you can run it however you like. The shares in Sophia's hands weren't many. The majority were under my name. After some maneuvering, the shares held by Richard also fell into my hands. This was the result of Olivia's persuasion. Because I promised her a child, Richard trusted me completely. And over the years, Richard had seen the corruption inside Taylor Group and understood that the company was already on the brink of collapse. If Olivia wanted to truly take control of the Taylor Group, she had to invest a huge amount of money. In the end, she bought the shares. Losing the Taylor Group would have meant complete ruin for Sophia. Without enough funds, she had to sell property, pawn jewelry, and beg people for loans. In the end, she managed, barely, to become the de facto controller of the Taylor Group. I received the liquidated shares, not a huge amount, $200 million. Worried Sophia might give up if she couldn't raise enough funds, I didn't make an exorbitant demand. Not long after Sophia settled into her position, I activated the trap I had long prepared, plunging Taylor Group in a crisis once more. Scandals at Taylor Group were exposed one after another. Several projects halted for various reasons, cash flow dried up, and they ultimately had to declare bankruptcy. Fortunately, all the company's debts were under Olivia's name. Sophia only owned shares. She had simply lost everything. No, she was still burdened with the huge debts she had borrowed to buy the shares. Tens of millions of dollars, perhaps a lot for ordinary people. But for Sophia, who was disabled and had no work experience, this debt was enough to completely crush her. And my family's company. Over the years, I had been quietly urging my father to gradually sell off shares. By now, he was no longer the one in control of Johnson Corporation. When I sold my shares in Taylor Group, my parents had already flown to Switzerland. I had long since completed their immigration paperwork, so they could enjoy their retirement in peace. After watching Taylor Group collapse with a crash, I promptly disappeared without a trace. 2 years later, I returned to He City with a blonde, blue-eyed little boy named Leo Johnson. In the howling winter wind, the biting cold made people shiver. I heard Olivia's mother abandoned Richard and ran off to another place. Sophia's mother, having no money for treatment after the Taylor family's bankruptcy, died in pain. Sophia and her father could only live cramped together in a shabby rented room in the old district of He City. When they saw me appear, a faint light flashed in the father and daughter's eyes. But when they saw the blonde, blue-eyed baby in my arms, shock was written all over Richard's face. "Ethan, where have you been?" "This child. Whose child is this?" "This is the child my wife and I had. He's already a year and a half old," I said with a smile. Richard clutched his chest, his face full of terror. "This is not blood of the Taylor family at all. How dare you deceive us like this?" "Of course not. There's no way I'd want a child of someone as vicious as Olivia. I came back this time precisely to see with my own eyes how miserable you've become. Seeing you in this state, I am very satisfied." They were raggedly dressed. Richard was used to being waited on by servants, and his machismo made him naturally disdainful of doing housework. And Sophia had trouble with her legs and feet, so she could only support the two of them by doing odd jobs. As for why could she only do odd jobs? Naturally, it was because she had run up huge debts. Whenever there was money in her account, the bank would forcibly deduct it. She looked at me with red-rimmed eyes and asked in a choked voice, "Ethan, why are you doing this to me? I've never done anything to hurt you, and yet you want to take revenge on us like this." I remember the days I was locked in the top floor of the Taylor house. I begged countless times. I sent Sophia to find the real killer of Lucas. I pleaded with her to spare me. I only happened to intercept that phone call. I did not harm Lucas. Such a punishment would be too cruel. She said coldly, "You think playing innocent will let you escape punishment? I am certain you are the murderer. That's the fact." A bodyguard, Brian Walker, came over and took the child from my arms. "If you're determined to pin a fabricated crime on me, then don't blame me for returning the favor tooth for tooth. My purpose on this trip is simple. It's to make them see my happiness, to let them live forever in regret." Sophia, furious, grabbed a brick from the ground and was about to smash it at me. Of course, my bodyguard quickly subdued her. "Should we take her to the police station?" The bodyguard pinned her to the ground. Sophia's gaunt cheek was pressed hard against a shard of stone. The sharp rock immediately cut her face, and blood ran down her cheek. "No need. Sending her to the police station means she'll have enough to eat and wear. Too lenient for her." In her previous life, because Lucas died on a rainy day, she was heartbroken. She always made things difficult for me on rainy days. Not only did she force me out into the rain, she wouldn't let me change my clothes after getting wet. Since she's so heartless, then let her taste the same feeling. Sophia barely scraped by doing odd jobs, let alone afford any heating equipment. Her shabby rented room didn't even provide basic shelter from wind and rain. According to the Meteorological Bureau, this winter would be the coldest in nearly 100 years. Sophia extra. After Ethan left, Sophia burned so badly one rainy night that she lost consciousness. During the high fever, she dreamt back to the crucial moment of the dance segment in the art major entrance exam. Ethan intercepted the phone call that would change her fate just in time. She was practically delirious with joy at the time. How wonderful! This way she could enter the competition and fulfill her dream of the Royal Dance Academy. She wouldn't meet Lucas, her life path wouldn't veer off, and she could spend the rest of her life hand in hand with Ethan. She immersed herself in pleasant fantasies. But reality developed in a completely different direction. After Lucas's death, she blamed all the faults on Ethan. She abused Ethan, destroyed the Johnson family business, and even forced him to stand in the rain on a winter night. In the end, he chose to jump off a building to kill himself on a rainy night. The moment she lost Ethan, it felt as if her soul had been drained empty. Only then did she understand that she had long been deeply in love with him, but could not let go of Lucas's death. Only by continually hurting Ethan could she temporarily numb her guilt. After Ethan passed away, she voluntarily turned herself into the police. When she woke from the dream, Sophia was streaming tears and let out a pained, hysterical laugh. Ethan Johnson, extra. I know Olivia's character very well, but without using her, it's almost impossible to destroy the Taylor family. I couldn't bear to watch the Taylor family continue living carefree. In my past life, Sophia destroyed my family under the guise of marriage. In this life, I will return the favor in kind. As for that woman Sophia, I swear I will never have any involvement with her again. When Olivia appeared before me, I immediately thought of the perfect revenge plan. Olivia is both stupid and arrogant. She also carries an unspeakable dark past, practically a tool sent by heaven. I deliberately acted friendly, built a friendship, and ultimately entered into marriage. Every intimate contact after marriage made me nauseous. In the early days of our marriage, I did everything I could to avoid getting pregnant. I will never let her carry my child. But to make her willingly transfer the shares, a child is a necessary bargaining chip. So I went overseas and carefully selected the right genes. Now my child is clever and adorable, well-educated and well-mannered. Not only do I control a vast business empire, but I also have a happy and fulfilling family. I am truly a winner in life.